Hi, I'm Melissa Bill, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Joseph Lombardi. He is the founding managing partner at Iron Hawk Financial. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's weird because finance was definitely never my thing in school. Well, just numbers and my thing in school. But as I've gotten older, I've realized the importance of knowing how to invest, because it can make the difference between having pretty much little to nothing when you're like retired and you're kind of living off that income to really being set up for your future. So I think this is really an important topic to kind of dive into.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I lived it, Melissa. I watched my dad fall 3 stories off a ladder. It was a $27 million construction company. I watched my mother die at 52 years old from cirrhosis liver with no life insurance. I watched my grandmother have a stroke led to dementia. She lost $4.2 million to Ludlow Nursing Home in Fairfield. So nobody wakes up on a Thursday and is like, oh, how's my long-term care portfolio today, right? People have blinders on, they have priorities, they don't know. But it all stems through, unfortunately, the education. It's not our fault. The government owns the educational system. The educational system says invest in the government. It's a huge monopoly, huge conflict of interest. They want you smart enough to work, and they want you dumb enough to get robbed without realizing you're getting robbed through what I call your slave number, your social security number.
That makes sense. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about different things. So I know you've won numerous awards. I mean, you're top 40 advisors under 40 years old. I mean, you've worked for, like you said, Wall Street, you're on Wall Street. What are some of the other, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so, I'm the owner and founder. I've been in business for 23 years. I won 42 industry awards. Featured in many publications, International Business Times, Business Insider, Market Insider, Daily Caller, Marquis Who's Who, Gresham Library 2023 is right there. I'm also on, as you said, magazine covers like the Who's Who in Building and Construction. I'm on the cover of the Top 40 Under 40 for Finance. I have written 3 books that are all on Amazon, all 5-star rated books, by the way. It's kind of hard to do. But that's Being Your Own Bank, There's a Better Way Than a 401k, and Long-Term Care Without Long-Term Pain. I have thousands of clients, billions of dollars of protection rollovers, 0 complaints, A+ rated on the Better Business Bureau, 5-star rated on Google. I'm national, so I have agents and clients in almost every state in the United States. And it just stems from wanting to make sure that people are safe. My family wasn't. I remember my dad's answering machine, aging myself, where people like myself were trying to get my father, to do the planning, and he thought he was Superman. And and unfortunately, there's a joke that says every dad thinks they're Superman until they realize they're just a drunk guy in a cape, right? So it's one of those things where my dad never planned. He failed to plan, so his plan was to fail. He trusted the government. The government didn't care about him. They stole all his money. They put him on Title 19. They gave him $1,200 from a multi-million-dollar estate and $60 a month from his Social Security. That was $4,000 a month in pensions and everything. And then they just threw him in a 10-by-10 jail cell known as a nursing home, next to a stranger who watched Mets games until 2 a.m. on blast. I had strangers who didn't like him taking care of him and feeding him and bathing him, and it was a nightmare. And, I don't want that to happen to anybody. So I'm out there saying, hey, my father always claimed, I didn't know. So I'm on my soapbox screaming, please, please, please protect yourself, protect the people you love, build legacy plans, diversify your taxation, diversify your market exposure, get these things set up. And most people wait till it's too late. They're uninsurable. They went to the hospital and they're like, oh no, I don't have anything. Well, at that time you're uninsurable. You can't do anything. So while you're healthy, while you have the means, make sure you do the planning. If not with me, with somebody you trust.
That makes sense. And let's kind of dive into some of the things I know a lot of people, what are the kind of secrets the ultra wealthy are using for their financial vehicles? So, I mean, just for an example, and inheriting a 401k, we kind of talked about that. 401ks, a lot of us have them, or we've inherited them, but let's say our parents pass on. What are some of the worst strategies that you've seen? And then what are some of the strategies that you're recommending and that you think are like the better way to go? Let's kind of dive into that first.
So the worst strategies are the ones your accountants lie to you to do. And I'm going to say the word lie very bluntly. So when most entrepreneurs, wealthy people, business owners, people who care about their financial health, they think their accountant is the one they need to talk to and trust and have that. But What I have found, doing this for 23 years, the accountant doesn't know what the heck they're doing. And I could say that very bluntly as well. When I say they lie to you, what do they lie to you about, right? So you go to your accountant and you say, hey, I had a really good year. Can you help me save money on my taxes? Well, your accountant, this is where the lie starts. Your accountant's going to say, well, let's open up a SEP, Simplified Employer Pension. Let's open up a 401k, an IRA, a 403b, a safe harbor, a 457, a deferred comp plan. Let's defer the money into what's called qualified money. And when the government has the word qualified, it's like, ooh, I want my money qualified. It's like, no, you don't. You really don't. So, you're going to put your $15,000 into a 401k, your $50,000 into a SEP, your $200 a month into your company's 401k, whatever. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say, look at the money I saved. Well, the last time that I checked, I read the IRS code book. There's not, the word savings is not in it once. So what's in it is called deferral. And when you defer money, you don't save anything, right? I watched an NFL game. They have a coin flip before every game, and then the loser defers to the second half to most likely kick off or receive. Well, did they save anything? No, they still have to kick off. They still have to receive. So they didn't save anything. So the number one lie that most Americans have is actually perpetrated by their accountant, where they say, I want to save money. Your accountant lies to you, says, okay, let's put money in a qualified account. Okay, because when you think about it, oh, well, no, Joe, when I'm older, I'm going to be in a way lower tax bracket. It's like, so let me just follow this plan, with you. So what you're telling me is you're going to make the most money you ever made in your 50s, 60s, God forbid you work to your 70s, and then you retire, you're going to live in poverty? You're going to go from a 25, 28% tax bracket to a 10, which means you're living on 30 grand a year? And that's your strategy? Do you ever realize why nobody's retiring and how the young generation doesn't have jobs? Because the older people aren't giving them up? It's because the lies that were told by the educational system. And why is the educational system lying to us? Well, the government owns the educational system. The educational system tells you to invest in the government. And then that same government is on Fox News and CNN saying how monopolies are bad. Well, they're the most demonic, evil monopoly on earth. So when you look at what's really happening, the education isn't there on purpose. It's theirs to take advantage of your ignorance for profit. Because most people don't know this, but 401ks used to be tax-free. 401ks used to have the ability to have, guaranteed returns. You couldn't lose. Then Wall Street was sitting there like, ooh, look at all that money in the late 70s. There's a really good video on this on YouTube, a 60 minutes birth of a 401k with Jonah Walters or whatever her name is. Very good reporter back in the day. I'm aged, right? So when you look at that and you say, okay, so 401k was tax-free. Why is it taxable now? Well, Wall Street was sitting there licking its chops, like, look at all those billions of dollars, and that's in the late 70s. That's like trillions of dollars today with present value and cost of goods and services and inflation. So they said they went to the government. They bought them out like most government officials are. They should wear those NASCAR jackets with Citco and NASCAR and Snickers and Snapple and all the different companies that buy them out to do their bidding. And so what happens is now Wall Street is in bed with you. And Wall Street said, let's have 12B1 fee, Class A share fund fee, money manager fee, annual account fee, mutual fund expense fee, or a flat AUM fee. Well, the average American says it's only 1.5%, Joe. What do you it's not a big deal. Well, that is compounding on the whole account value. It's not just on your contribution, right? If you're doing $15,000 a year, the first few years, you're like, I don't even feel it. What's it, $300, $500? It's no big deal. But then when your account value keeps growing, year 10, 15, 20, when you get to year 30 at $15,000 a year for 30 years, 450 grand, if you had just S&P 500, it'd be worth over $3 million. Well, what's 1.5% of $3 million? Well, that's $45,000 in 1 year in fees. Wasn't that your first year, second year, and third year's contribution stolen year 30? How about year 29? That would be roughly around $42,000. Well, isn't that your fourth year, your fifth year, and 11 months of your sixth year? So literally the year 29 and year 30 in an IRA, managed by a Fidelity, a Wells Fargo, a Transmeric, any of these accounts that offer that service, they're going to keep charging you that fee. So you're going to pay over 50%, over 50% of what you put in is stolen from you by Wall Street. And then you have another enemy in your 401k. Well, I did accumulation and Wall Street stole half my money. Well, now I have to do the distribution. I have to now take that as income. Well, guess what happens when you do that? You have federal taxes, you have state taxes. So if I have federal and state taxes coming out, there's another 40-50% stolen. So now you're like, wait, what? I get 25% of the account value and the other 75% is stolen by Wall Street and by the federal and state governments? And then I've asked a very, very, very simple question for the last 20 years, and not one person got it right unless they heard me talking about it. What is a 401k, Melissa, if I put you on the spot? You're going to say something along the lines of it's a deferred thing, it has gross money, there's taxes on it, I can lose if the money... No, that's what it does. What is a 401k?
I would say, I mean, most simple, it's just the 401k is supposed to be a savings type of thing that you can make some money on that you and your company supposedly go in together. That would be like my, take on it.
So that's what it does. So what it is, it's an IRS code. It's IRS code 401k. If you're a teacher, if you're a firefighter, if you're a nurse or a doctor, it's IRS code 403b, IRS code 457, college savings IRS code 529. So these are codes, and those codes don't benefit you. They benefit Wall Street and they benefit the government. And when you look at them, those are very high codes, right? Code 400, code 500. What the ultra wealthy do is they use IRS code section 7702. They're called 7702 plans. These strategies, the average American has never heard of. These strategies are tax-free. These strategies are sue-proof. These strategies can't lose. These strategies are earning double the rate of return historically in the S&P 500. These strategies, you can lean the money out and save yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest over your life and using it to buy vehicles and real estate and buy when the market crashes. And these IRS codes have built-in foundational protection that my mom, my grandmother, and my father didn't have of life insurance, disability, long-term care, critical illness, terminal illness, disability up to $1.5 million in cash, long-term care up to $30,000 a month in cash. So what it does is it allows you to leave a legacy to the people you love, so that state and federal government doesn't steal it all, or it goes to probate, and you have your family fight over it because this is incontestable. It works as a trust. It's safe. Your money's safe from the Dodd-Frank Act, of 2010. And so what it does is it gives you my clients that know what's really going on in the market with the dollar changing, why gold and silver went up, and more importantly, why gold and silver went down. Most people don't know why. So they are looking for strategies like this to say, hey, the traditional banking isn't the way to go. Because banks don't invest their dollars in banks. If you were to look up BOLI, B-O-L-I, bank-owned life insurance, banks keep their money in 7702 plans. They don't keep them in banks. So how could they, right? If Wells Fargo is running at a deficit and Bank of America has a lot of money, well, Bank of America has to send money to Wells Fargo. Well, if they do that, isn't there a 1-day hold, another day transfer, a 3-day hold, and by the time the money transfers, people couldn't take their money out. So they use the BOLI to send money back and forth instantaneously, because that comes to you as liens and loans from one insurance company to the other.
Now, these things we were talking about, so it's like, so if someone was interested in finding out more, what would be the best way to go about it? Like, are they like, it's called seven. Now, what is it again for this one?
Right. I know. It's everyone says, Joe, you speak Chinese. I'm like, I know. I understand. So if any of your listeners want to learn about this, absolutely free. Just send an email to info@ironhawkfinancial.com. That's info at iron, I-R-O-N, hawk, H-A-W-K, financial.com. And, that'll automatically send you books, articles, magazines, websites, webinars, everything that I've done on it.
Okay.
It'll send the International Business Times piece I wrote in. And then if you leave your phone number, you leave a little bit of information and your name, then somebody from my team will call you. And like I said, it's absolutely free to do this. It's just people have to be able to prioritize their financial health, which most people don't. Like, look at our physical health. Right, America is very unhealthy. We're overweight. We have all these, pop medications. A lot of people voluntarily took the jab, so they just listen to whatever the government says, and the government wants you unhealthy. Right, fat people can't get together and fight the government against the government. Stupid people can't band together and fight the government. So it's all about suppressing us spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially, so we're easily malleable, easily controllable, and they can keep extracting and stealing from us.
That makes sense. And I know you kind of mentioned too the Dodd-Frank Act 2010. What is a little bit about that, like a background? Because for some people who don't know.
Yeah, so what that act states, you can again use ChatGPT and
Yeah.
figure it out. What banks can do now is they can just steal your money. What the government can do is they can go to banks, they can freeze your accounts, they can pull your money. And it has to be for no reason. It's not like, oh, I owed back taxes. So no, they literally just say, we're thinking about having a war with Iran, and we need more resources. You're a citizen, meaning you're cannon fodder. That's why they send our kids to die in World War II, in the Gulf War and all these other wars. So your money's cannon fodder. We could just take it and steal it. Where my clients put their money, they can't. There's something called HIPAA laws. I don't know if people remember from COVID.
Yep.
So that's why creditors don't know it exists. Hence, this was built by the ultra wealthy. The ultra wealthy bought politicians to build this code, and they built it for them because number one, they can't. 250,000 is all they can keep FDIC insured, and they make more than that in a month in interest on their account.
Right.
So they can't keep it in a bank. So they said, well, where do we keep it? Right. So they built this for them. Right. For us, by us. Right. The original for the elites. So I bring this to the general market, the Christian market, the conservative market, the blue collar market, the business owner market, and say, listen, if you're older, you have to meet with me, because if you just stay with the government, you stay in the market. If I can't tell you how many people I meet in their 60s and 70s where they're 100% invested in the market, like they're 20. They have no bonds. They're all in tech, and I'm like, when, not if, when there's a correction, you're screwed. Like you're not retiring. And if you retire and then that happens, you no TV, no cell phone, eating noodles and eggs like I did when I grew up in extreme poverty. You're like
Romaine.
You're done, right? So this financial planning is so important, but then the question is, who do you trust, right? There's so many bad apples in the financial field. It's one of the most demonic industries is finance. You know how I know that? Because the number one thing talked about in the Bible is money. So over Jesus, over, treat thy neighbor as thyself, over, why are we here? Money's talked about the most. But yet it is a forbidden topic in our culture, right? What are we not allowed to talk about? Politics, religion, and money. Yeah. Why is that? Well, because religion, we'd all band together and realize, oh my God, demons are in power. We need to do something about it because Jesus is in us and we need to fight. They forbid that. Politics, why not? Because then we realize, yes, one's better than the other. I can't agree with that. But they're still two wings of the same bird. So your best, I'm going to say Republican that I voted for, is still not as good as a normal citizen, because most politicians are sociopaths and psychopaths. To want power and control and manipulation over people, you have to be. So when you look at that, you say, okay, I can't talk about politics. I can't talk about religion. Why can't I talk about finances? Because you are being robbed. You are being stolen. You are being mistreated. And the last time I learned about theft, you go to jail. But when the government does it, it's just called, what they do. So, but I don't know another way. There's all this crypto, there's gold and silver, there's at least I could touch gold and silver. I don't know about IRS codes. I don't know about, I have real estate, I could touch it, I could feel it, I could hold it. This is what the ultra wealthy do, because what they do is they lean this money to buy gold and silver when it crashes, to buy real estate when it crashes, to buy Apple or Nvidia when it crashes. Buy low, sell high. Well, what does our government teach us? Dollar cost averaging. Let me put the same amount every month for 30 years, and you're going to average right around 4.5%. What's inflation running at? 6.5%. So you're guaranteeing yourself a negative 2% rate of return, net rate of real rate of return on your dollars. So you're being hit from taxes, inflation, fees, market losses, and you're not diversifying. Because at least when I went to school, they said that word. I don't think that word is in our school system anymore. But it's all about diversify, right? And people are like, well, Joe, I am diversified. I have stocks, I have real estate, I have business equity, I have gold and silver, I have crypto. That's not the diversification I'm talking about. That's taxable. That's market correlated. So you own the same thing. It's going to move the same way, and it's going to be taxed the same way. And most of that stuff is illiquid. So if you go back to a 401k, there's a 59.5 year rule for early distributions. So what that means is if you as an adult who traded your time, your present, God's most valuable gift to us is a present, is our present time, you traded that for dollars, right? And then now when you spend those dollars, government's going to be like, we're stealing your time. So when you understand how important it is, which again, it's not trained to you, it's not educated to you, it's just what you do. But when you take a step back and critically think of why I do what I do, why do I have a 401k? Why do they tell me at 59 and a half, I can't touch my money? Bad boy or girl. And then at 73 and a half, you better take your money. Required minimum distributions. You better take your money, because if you do not, we're going to charge you a 50% penalty. 50. So 10 on the way up, 50 on the way out. Wall Street's stealing half my money, and then the government's steal half my money when I take distributions. Why do people do that? It's lack of education on purpose perpetrated by the federal government that runs the educational system, period. So you have to wake up. Like most people woke up with the jab, like, oh, I don't want to be a lab rat. Like maybe I shouldn't take an experimental MRA, which I know nothing about. They need to do that for their finances, because you only have 5 selves, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and those are all multipliers to your financial health.
Yeah, you were talking about too, which is an important thing to bring up. Real estate has always been talked about as far as being a stable, basic investment. Now, when you're talking about diversifying, what are some of the things that you kind of talk to your clients about? Like, what do you mean, like diversifying? So let's say you do some real estate. What would be some of the other things that you would suggest, just out of curiosity?
So you have to diversify your financial foundation, right? What most Americans do, as my family did, is they built a beautiful home on sand. When there was a market reprieve, a disability, a long-term care diagnosis, whenever there was a death, the house that was built crumbled. Everything, their whole life, stolen by the federal and state governments. So when you are building this beautiful house, metal roof, mahogany cabinets, right? My dad's house was worth $27 million, right? That was his net worth before he fell, and then it all went away within 6 years. But when you are building this beautiful home, if the basement is full of water, it has cracks in the foundation, it's leaking, why would you invest $100,000 into your bathroom on the second floor? So skipping the foundation is important. So am I saying put every dollar you've ever had in here? No. What I'm saying is you need to have a foundation, and then you have your real estate, your business equity, your risk, right? And then you have your luxury. Well, most Americans build it backwards. They go luxury first, then they go risk. They have no real estate, no business equity, and no foundation. And then when something happens, everything they built, see ya. So it's so vitally important to build that. And then I'm thinking, well, what's the best way to build it? I could buy a term life policy, a disability policy, a long-term care policy. Well, all those are liabilities, and they all have terms. An insurance company is going to insure you for a term policy for 30 years if they think you're going to die in 20. So they're just going to decline you. So owning is more powerful than renting. And the second biggest lie, which deferral and tax savings from accountants is number one, the second biggest lie that our culture talks about when it comes to financial planning is confusing on purpose life insurance and death insurance. They have commingled those words to confuse the American people. When I own a term life insurance policy, I own 0 life insurance. I own 100% death insurance. There's no value in my life. There's no living benefits. There's no cash I can pull out for any reason. The only way that is valuable is if I die or if there is death. So they've confused that to so many Americans on purpose, because once Americans realize that there's something legally called life insurance that has disability, critical illness, terminal illness, functions as a Roth IRA, no limit on the contributions you put in, no 59.5 year rule, no 10% penalty for early withdrawals, no RMDs, incontestable in court. You know, it's non-disclosable on the FAFSA form and secondary form, and doesn't disqualify your children from grants, scholarships, low interest rate student loans, or financial aid. So when you look at it, this asset is insanely superior. And what did Wall Street and the government have to do? They had to make a rule that there's no legal way to advertise. When was the last time, Alyssa, you've seen an investment or insurance commercial?
I haven't. Yeah.
Never.
No.
They have to have jingles. They have to have a Geico, Gecko tell you to save 50% or more. They can't tell you about HO6 plans, HO4 plans in the property and casualty space. They can't talk about index universal life or whole life or SIUL, second to die. They can't talk about irrevocable trust, revocable trust, how they leverage, how to put your real estate in it, how to open up an S Corp instead of a C Corp or an LLC because it's a non-pass-through entity. They can't teach you any of this stuff. They can't tell you any of this stuff. What they can sell you is what? Drugs that murder you 24/7. There's a picture of a middle-aged, usually a mixed-race couple, and they're like, "Hi, I suffered from a headache. Come take Will Dietol, and if I take more, I'm going to die and have massive diarrhea, and my arm's going to blow off my body. Please, wasn't that fun? Yay!" And they're high-fiving. It's insanity. But when you look at it, you have to wake up, right? This isn't for blue pill people. Unfortunately, this isn't for many of my Democrat friends and family because they don't get it. This is for people that are awake. They understand what's really going on. They're looking around and saying, "Wow, nobody's retiring. Wow, my really wealth grandmother didn't leave me anything. I wonder why." Well, it's because she trusted the government and the government stole all her money. So when you look at it, you have to be proactive, right? As I was saying, like you have a past self, a present self, and a future self, right? If you live in the past, you live in depression. If you live in the future, you live in anxiety. You have to live in the present, right? That's your peaceful time. That's your Zen time. However, you have to plan for your future. And if you're not going to plan for your future, who will?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, I know just, because we talked a little bit about it, my mom, same thing. It's like not too long ago, but 401k, and it's just you pay into it, but like then you're left. It goes pretty quickly, and then when she passed, there's a little bit left, but then you have your Social Security, and that's pretty much what most people kind of draw off of. And then when that's out, that's it. You have your home, which you hope is paid off.
Yeah, you definitely need to have some sort of plan. If you fail to plan, your plan's to fail, right? And once your money's run out, it's gone. That's why the word annuity is like a icky word in our culture. I wonder why. It's a $500 billion a year industry. That's a $500 billion. And it is where smart people put their money because it takes the risk off of the investor and it puts it on the investment and or insurance company. They guarantee you an income for the rest of your life. You can never outlive it. So now no matter what, those dollars are coming in to pay my cell phone, to pay my cable bill, to pay my grocery bill, to pay my property taxes on my paid off house. I mean, that makes you want to move to Florida, right? Ron DeSantis says no more property taxes. Like that guy. Never hear that from a blue governor, I guarantee that. So when you look at these strategies, you have to do this planning, and most people are scared. Most people are ignorant, which is not your fault. You weren't taught this. That's like me asking your viewers to speak Japanese. They never were taught it. So, but it's making sure that you work with somebody who's fluent. In this example, Japanese, which no, I'm not. But in the tax laws, in strategy, somebody who has an insurance background and an investment background and a financial planning background, who works in rooms with estate planning attorneys, who works in rooms with CPAs, attorneys, tax accountants, and make sure that your legacy plan, your retirement plan, your tax plan, your long-term care plan, your death plan is all structured and set. And it's not fun, right? And nobody's like, "Yay, I want to face my mortality and my morbidity today." Yay! But if you fail to do it because you're scared, you fail to do it because you can't face reality, you fail to do it because you can't critically think, you're going to pay a lot more later. Just know that. And when I mean a lot more, I mean everything. Everything you've ever had is going to be stolen from you. And your kids that need it, your grandkids who really need it, especially if there's not enough jobs anymore, they can't buy houses anymore. You won. You lived through the boom. You lived through the industrial boom of the 90s. You lived through the tech boom of the mid-2000s. you are winning, and these poor kids are coming into a culture where they can't even buy a house. I'm not talking about a mansion. I'm talking about a one bedroom, like two
Yeah.
bedroom, one bath house on point 0.1 of an acre is 400 grand.
Yeah. It's
How can they
insane.
do that when minimum wage is 25 bucks an hour?
It's insane. Well, now, if people wanted more information and just to kind of get a plan together or just to have questions about things that they're doing, what's the best way to get more information?
Yeah, you go to ironhawkfinancial.com, go to contact us, fill out your information, send an email to info@ironhawkfinancial.com. I'm in the process of building another landing page. We just had our whole website switched over, so I will have learnhawk.com set up, but it's not up yet. But it's just, look up the website, www.ironhawkfinancial.com, or send an email to info@ironhawkfinancial.com. Even if you're not ready, you're not in a financial position to invest, but you want to look at what the ultra rich do, just write, hey, broke but need info. We won't
Yeah,
bother
right.
you, I promise. But I want to get this information out. That's why I do not charge a penny for it. It's so vitally important that this education that your elementary school failed you, your middle school failed you, your high school failed you. If you were smart/dumb enough to go to college, your college failed you. So this information is real. It's fact verified. I've been doing this for almost a quarter century flawlessly. And if you learn what I know, you won't be taken advantage of in the financial way as you have been your entire life.
It's important. I mean, I can attest to that. Like, because I started waking up maybe about 5 years ago, and just, some of the ways I'm like, wow, that was like stupid. Like some of the things that you do, but you don't realize it, even with like, the IRS can be rough too. You got to really, you have to play things in the right way, or you can have a lot of issues. So yeah, but I really appreciate you getting the word out, and hopefully everybody goes to the website. Also, you have videos too as well, correct? That
Yeah,
people can
we
watch?
have socials at TikTok, X, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're at Ironhawk Financial at everything. Our Instagram is pretty cool. I involve my children a lot in my Instagram videos, which have thousands and thousands of views on Money Talk with Ironhawk on Instagram, or at Ironhawk Financial at Instagram. But yeah, I try to make it fun. I know that this sounds dry. It sounds boring. It sounds, painful. I don't want to think about me dying. I don't want to think about I can't take care of myself. I can't dress myself, feed myself, transport myself cognitively. I'm not where I am going to be in the future now. I'd rather worry about if the Dallas Cowboys are going to win the game, or the New York Yankees are going to do this, or what's happening with the NBA Finals, or the Knicks going to, pull it out in Game 4. And in reality, those are just distractions, right? We are so divided, so distracted, so uneducated. Everyone has ADHD. Everybody has, all these problems. And it's like, you need to focus on this. You need to focus on building your relationship with Jesus. If you have one, get closer. And when people think of money, they're like, what the heck does my weight, or my relationship with God, or, if I'm in a right mind, have to do with money, right? And it's like it has everything to do with
Yeah.
money. When you look at people who win the lottery, they don't win $200. I'm talking about people who win 100 million, 200 million. These are people that are they're not broke. They're bankrupt in
Yeah.
5 or 6 years. So your core values, what you think of yourself. Do you love yourself? Do you have a big hole in your heart that you're trying to fill with dollars? It's never going to work, right? You have to love yourself. You have to love Jesus. You have to understand there's something bigger than yourself. You have to wake up to the fact that if you have a family, I have 3 children, and I've been with my wife since I was 18. I'll be 42 next month. So when you look at it, I'm coming on 24 years. So when you look at it, it's so vitally important to make sure you have these things set up. And at least if you don't want to set them up, learn about them, so you can't say a cop out like my dad did. Oh, I didn't know. It's like, yes, these strategies are real. These strategies have been around 187 years. These strategies survived the Civil War, World War I, the Great Depression, World War II. These strategies never took bailout money from the government. These strategies have never lost. So when you understand that these strategies were built by the powers that be, for the powers that be, you can access them legally. You don't
Yeah.
have to do what all the sheep do. You don't have to do what all the ants do. You can actually do what the kings and all the wealthy do, and you are investing with them. You're buying in blocks of $1 billion when you invest in these strategies. You're buying option contracts, calls. You're buying longs. And again, this is like, I might as well just be saying boom now, mang nang nang chao, because nobody knows any of this stuff, right? So, but it's
Right.
so vitally important to learn, because it's not the difference of $100, it's the difference of millions of dollars over the course of your entire life, with market loss savings, interest savings, and tax savings.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's something that's super important. I hope people take a look at the website, kind of research things, look at the books, and reach out for more information. And I want to thank you so much again for joining us today.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me on your platform, Melissa. And if there's any value I could bring to you or your audience, I look forward to me and my company serving you.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to another episode of the Business Roundup. Until next week, I'm your host, Melissa Bill.